Hello, everybody. Welcome to MWise. I'm Cynthia Romero de Lao. And just some quick little reminders is make sure to download the app so you can see all of the track sessions that are going on. We'll also have lunch at 12:15, which is first come, first serve in the Expo Center. And then also, if you want any special swag, make sure to complete all the surveys. And then with that, I'd like to introduce you to Jenny Town and Bernie, who will be speaking for us today.
Hi, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. As you can tell, I'm Barney. This is Jenny, and we're going to tell you a little bit about a tale of two Jennies. Now, implicitly, you're probably wondering where the second Jenny is. She won't be making it, but we're going to talk about her in a little bit too. So let's just go ahead and get to it. We're going to do high volume, low sophistication. It's a method that North Korea uses, and it's super effective. Let me make sure I get this clicker. Hold on. Okay, got it, sorry. Okay, so really it's a story. It's more of a game, but we kind of got to tell the players of some of the main characters that we have in here. So first we're going to go into who they are. They are North Korea. This is APT-43, Advanced Persistent Threat 43, cyber group essentially is what we're going to call them. You might know them more in the open source as Kim Sookie. We'll talk a little bit about what their directives are, but overall, if we want kind of a high-level overview, these are the guys that get the information for the RGB. What is the RGB? The RGB is the Reconnaissance General Bureau. If you want to kind of wrap them up, that's going to be all of the IC for North Korea, all of the intelligence community. They're all kind of wrapped into that one. Next, you're going to get into me. My name is Michael Barnhart. I go by Barney. I've been in the originally from the regular Army Special Operations for many, many years, been essentially doing intel collection for the last 18 years across various disciplines. And I kind of came over here to Mandiant, and I'm kind of the voice of our North Korea effort for the company. And but I'm not really anybody. The most important person here is Jenny. You want to go ahead and show them what you work with?
Thanks, Barney. So I'm Jenny Town. I am the co-founder and director of 38 North. If you're not familiar with it, 38north.org. We provide policy and technical analysis on North Korea. We've been around since 2010, and we're probably most well known for the work that we do on North Korea's WMD sites. We do a lot of satellite imagery analysis. We do a lot of technical analysis. We have a lot of experts working with us that are retired military and intelligence analysts to help us better understand what it is we're seeing, what the implications are for North Korea's WMD programs, and where it might be headed next. So here is a sample of some of the kinds of articles that we do on the website. And so you can see we do a lot of things. We do more than WMD, but like I said, we're most known for the WMD work, as well as the implications for relations with the US, with the US-ROC alliance, with South Korea, with inter-Korean relations, and really also trying to look at the diplomatic opportunities in the meantime.
Okay, so we have the players. You've got APT-43. You've got Mandiant, and you have Jenny Town and 38 North, respectively. I'm going to touch a little bit about, so now we're going to kind of talk about the tale, talk about the game. So the game is simple, especially if you've been doing kind of intel collection for some time. You're trying to look at their cards, and they're trying to look at your cards, and then you have people like me and the company that we're with, Mandiant. We're trying to make sure that they don't see her cards, and we're also trying to look at their cards in the meantime. So we'll kind of touch on these guys again, just to kind of give you who's who in the zoo for what these guys are. The Reconnaissance General Bureau, there are more APT groups out there, and this is a very painting with broad strokes for the groups that we have here. APT-43, they are essentially, they are the intel collection. They're the team for the RGB. They're the ones that the RGB leadership, or really the regime leadership writ large, they're the ones that are giving the directives. So, and I think I kind of want to pause on this fact here. They're not after just what she's after or what she's looking into. They're looking for anything. If suddenly you guys were getting into pizza tomorrow, they're coming after you guys. They're going after Papa John's. They're just there to take orders and find out information about what their directives are. So that's APT-43. That's the RFI getters. The other guys there, APT-38, kind of dead. They kind of died in 2018, and now you have a bunch of crypto units that have risen in their wake. Tim Hermit, that's really, if you're thinking of Lazarus Group, that would be the Lazarus Group of them. They're the Swiss Army knife. They're going after crypto. They're going after defense. They're making apps for phones. They're doing it all. And then Andariel. Andariel one is the one that I've kind of got circled and starred on our team, at least. These are the guys that are building the bombs. These are the guys that are going after the nuclear facilities to get the R&D. These are the guys that are actually stealing the secrets to make the weapons. We had them going after airliner seats. I mean, they're doing it all. So those are the better guys. Those are the guys that are doing the hacking. Who we're talking about with Fake Jenny today is going to be actually APT43, aka Kim Sookie. Again, and also to stress too, like none of our clients are really kind of protecting about this too, like antivirus and stuff. They're pretending to people. They're pretending to be Jenny.
Yeah.
And we kind of want to talk a little bit about first when they hit you, and then what they did after that.
Well, just before we get to this slide, and that's fine.
Yeah.
One way to think of APT43 is that here in DC, for instance, there's a lot of different embassies. Within every embassy, there's usually some kind of intelligence officer or someone that goes around that will like talk to people in the community to see what DC is thinking in the policy community, in the government, in everything else. Trying to get a sense of like, where do we see Washington stand on this? What do we think Washington might do if this? And so APT43 is sort of like that, right? They don't have an embassy in DC. We don't have diplomatic relations. They don't have intelligence officers on the ground that can freely move about and talk to people. So this is sort of their way of trying to get information, not just the technical stuff, but really trying to understand how is Washington thinking, what might different responses to different kind of actions be, how that might affect relations going forward. So this is a case where, for instance, for me, I work only in open source. I don't have any classified, I don't have any clearance, I don't have any access to classified information. So there's part of me that's always like, well, who am I, right?
Important.
So here's an example, though, of, again, because our website is so influential, and has really gained the reputation of providing, good analysis, not only on what North Korea is doing, but again, what the implications are for relations outside of that. A few years ago, I was working late one night and stepped away from my computer. When I came back, I saw all of this running on the computer. All these scripts. And it's, of course, very unnerving. And so I started moving things around, taking pictures to see what were they looking at. And then all of a sudden, the camera came on and then went off real quickly, and then they closed everything down, and then I threw away the computer. But it was just a good example, a good reminder of everyone who has any access, any information, any part of the equation is also of interest to the North Koreans as they try and figure out their plans going forward.
I don't know I have a kind of a good idea what the inside of a hacker room might look like, but I thought this would be what I would assume they saw whenever they turned the camera on. So I wanted to make that slide. Can we go back one slide, actually? I want to point something out on this one. Okay, so in that top right, that's a TeamViewer instance, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So I blacked out her IP, so none of you guys can do the same. But this is important.
Yeah, please don't.
This is important right here, and it's something that, especially if anyone here is an active, they're working in soccer, they're in defense at whatever company. I'm not really sure who's in the crowd, but if you're a part of a network defender, I live in Florida. I'm going back to Florida as soon as it's over. When I go to work, I VPN into Mandiant. I'm a remote worker, and I log into my work, and that's how I do my job. What we're seeing. And it's something that everyone should kind of take away if you're in a position of power at your, for your remote workers. There should be no TeamViewer or any desk or any type of remote connection that should be going into the computer that then goes into the corporate network. And it would shock you how effective this is if we could turn this off. We've scanned our own clients at Mandiant. We're doing all our stuff on that end, and it's something we're looking for. But I'm remoting into my network. No one else should be remoting into my laptop to remote into the corporate network. And that's a good way to find out if you have IT workers. This whole thing is not about IT workers, but they're a huge problem that we're really circling. And if anyone has the ability to, you should scan your fleet and see if you have remote connections coming in, trying to get in your network, because they're at a lot of American companies. There are a lot of European companies, and they're really, really out there, and they're super effective. So I kind of want to touch on that because, again, it's a copycat league, and they used it too. And we see a lot of them using AnyDesk and TeamViewer. Hit it.
And they're sophisticated enough in this where they waited till it was really late at night. So I was working at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I had stepped away for a longer period of time to like brush my teeth or something. And this is what I saw when I came back. And then, because they were in my system and they had access to all of my files, I did worry a little bit about what are they doing with this and was it going to get leaked on the internet and all that kind of stuff. But there clearly was no leaks from it. They were clearly just gathering information. And this was an instance where it was unnerving, but turned out okay.
Yes, yeah. And the modus operandi at this point is going to be then to pretend to be her. Once you get hit, then they pretend to be you. They're going to copy your contacts list. And again, she's working for a target that you would expect to, but we see them going after CEOs and CISOs across many different industries. It's just targets of opportunity. So don't think that really everyone in this room, I have to imagine, if you use your credit card online, you're susceptible to being hit by Kim Suk APT43 in some way, shape, or form. So literally just, and again, knowing that you can't really defend against it, it's more of a situational awareness. We're trying to get the word out there. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So we have a plan. Again, they're so effective and they're so high volume that we had to go back to their drawing board and get with it. What do you think?
Yeah, so this isn't, they're not hacking us anymore. Or they don't start with the hacking aspect of stuff. Generally these days, it's a lot of social engineering. It's a lot of sending fake emails saying, pretending to be me, pretending to be my staff, pretending to be reporters. And they'll ask questions like, will you write an article? Or, here's some interview questions I have. And half the time, there's no malware there. They're literally just trying to get information or trying to establish a relationship in the process where eventually they may ask for, or they may eventually impose malware. But it's usually just a conversation building device. And so they'll ask questions like about China-Taiwan relations. They'll ask questions about, what would the Japanese government, how would the Japanese react to North Korean actions like such and such? And so, they'll ask people to write articles. They'll invite people to be speakers at events, and events that don't exist, articles that never get published. And we've even seen examples where they've commissioned someone to write a paper. They've then used that paper, posed as me again, asking someone else to review the paper to see how other people react to it, sending an actual document that has no malware and getting people to give feedback on like how representative is this view. So again, it's a lot of intelligence gathering. And a lot of it is pretty standard stuff if you could actually go out and have conversations. But again, the way they do it, it's a lot of like sending emails from Gmail accounts, fake Hotmail accounts. They're really good at mimicking like even institutional email addresses. So like instead of stimson.org, they'll use stimson. They'll change like one letter or add one letter. So if you're not paying attention closely, it's very easy to think that it's a real request. And they've been very successful in getting people to respond to them. And usually what happens is that if someone has a question, like if fake me has asked them to write an article, they'll generally have a question at some point, message me on a different platform about like, I have questions about this request and I have no idea what they're talking about. And I was like, go scan your computer now. So yeah, a lot of it is really telling people as broadly as possible to be vigilant, because that's about the most we can do right now. And then also, we've been working together as well of whenever there are fake emails that have been identified, helping try and also reach the people who are getting the emails before they answer the emails or before they answer too much of the emails and before they click on any links or open any documents.
It's funny because I've known fake Jenny for about 6 years and I've known real Jenny for about 1.5 years. And so it was a bit of a kind of a starstruck moment. I was like, oh my God, it's you. But the thing is that they're winning, essentially. And so Jenny and I we worked with Mandiant, we had to come up with a plan, and it's basically match volume for volume. These guys are heavy into AI, heavy into automation. They're definitely they're going out there, and it's the volume. And what they're like, they only need a couple of people to click, because once they're in the context list, then they're just trying to spray and pray again. Again, it's, they're the adversary, so you gotta hate them, but like, it's pretty slick. It's like, you're not robbing the bank, you're just dressing up as her and just asking for the money, and then it works. Like, we see it all the time. And in the past year and a half that we've been working together, I think we've had over 90 times where we've had to get on the line, like, hey, Jenny, we got something big. And then 20% of those times we've had to be like, call Jenny and be like, hey, you need to tell them right now, it's about to go down. And so we're trying to actively match firepower with firepower. And MWise is built on collaboration. I don't have a card. I see Andrew back there. Find someone who works at Mandiant, and I'm looking for people like me that want to go after the mission, go after the bad guys. So we're all in this together. They're after all of us. So anyone who wants to collaborate after this or wants to join forces, we are down. And on that, we'll go ahead and get to some of the fun spots. This is me and Jenny talking to you. Actually, this first one's you, Jenny. This is a good one. Yeah.
So like I said, they like to pose as fake me, fake my staff. This is actually N. Slavny is
Natalia.
Is an actual person, Natalia Slavny, but this is not her email address. She is one of my staff, and she was at some point sending around invitations to a fake conference. And people, asking them to be speakers. And so then every once in a while, I'll get angry emails from people who we have supposedly asked to be a speaker at a conference. Once they confirm, then the fake person says, oh, sorry, it's all full. We disinvite you as a speaker, and then they get really angry. And then they send me angry emails about how unprofessional it is. And I have to explain to them, it's not real. None of it was real. So we get a lot of this where, now instead of posing as me, they just use my name a lot too. Like, we've seen examples where they'll pose as a reporter, and they'll be like, I got your name because I was having lunch with my good friend Jenny Town. And it's like, what? So yeah, they just throw my name around all the time now. But even in the as we're doing this, in the notification part of the people who we're working with, there are times where trying to tell someone who's been receiving emails from fake us doesn't believe that it's not us. And so we've had some interesting conversations that way as well, of like, I have a colleague who I had informed him that he was not talking to a real person. He wasn't talking to the person who they said it was. I was like, it is a North Korean actor. Like, you need to stop corresponding with them. And he's like, well, but it sounds like something my friend would ask me to do. So, like, I think it's him. So he corresponded. He was like, he sent an email back saying, hey.
Here we go.
Yeah.
On the left side.
He was like, hey, Stimson IT thinks that you might be a North Korean hacker. Can you please verify that you're the real person? And so, of course, the fake person was like, yes, of course it's me. And then he was like, but, maybe something does look a little suspicious here. And so in the course of the email, what's not on here is that this person had sent the email to me saying, oh, no, see, Jenny, it is him. It's just complicated. And I was like, no, it's not complicated. They're just playing along with you. Like, here's the real email of the person you think you're corresponding with, and you see how it's different. He's like, oh. So he eventually emailed the real person, verifying that it wasn't him that had asked him to do something. And then in the meantime, I think the fake Joe had realized this and sent this email back saying, oh, well, it may be North Korea's hacking. Sorry for troubling you. Big apologies, right?
North Korea apologizing for them hacking, pretending to be somebody. I love it. I love it.
And there was a recent example just last week of a colleague of mine who, again, was asked by a fake one of my staff to write a piece looking at Taiwan relations and what like a U.S. response to something happening in Taiwan would be. And so he wrote out a whole 2-paragraph response of what he thought would happen. And the fake Ileana wrote back and said, oh, I strongly, in caps, I strongly agree with your assessment. So yeah, they're definitely building rapport. They're definitely getting information. They're trying to understand how the world is viewing what they're doing. Sometimes they're testing ideas of like how would we react to things that they're doing. But they've learned ways to really effectively get people to respond to them. Unfortunately, I get caught in the middle of all that.
Yep, and it's just, and not to downplay the situation too. There are many other Ginny towns out there that I work with that are out there that are spoofing, which she just happens to be one of the more prolific. And also, my story isn't as entertaining. I'm the one on the right side. I'm the guy just trying to make sure that her cards don't get taken. And I'm hitting her up. I'm like, hey, is this Natalia's real email? Oh, it's not. Oh, God. And then we're off to work and back out to the victim notifications and trying to stop that stuff. The thing is, it's just so effective. And we have an example right here. This is Ileana, I believe, right?
Yeah.
There's not really much here, and there's a lot to read, especially if you can't quite see it. But this is just the type of stuff they're looking at. And she had mentioned the one time with they were trying to meet up in D.C. I've wondered how they're going to pull this off. Either they cancel the event or they suddenly get sick at the last moment and can't attend. Because I've wondered how they're going to complete their life. They're painting themselves into a corner. Again, this is the type of stuff they're looking for, but I don't want to pigeonhole that it's all about North Korea, U.S. relations, the ROC, China, Taiwan. They're literally going after anything. Crypto is a big one right now. Agriculture is a big one right now. There's a famine in North Korea. If there's a way to go about things, they're shooting for it, and they're doing really crafty ways to bypass a lot of our defenses. We have some more here too.
And just on that example,
sorry, if we can go
it's
back
fine. On that example, what's fun about this is that they basically intercepted at some point an actual event invitation. And so they've now reworked the invitation, changed the date on it, and invited a whole bunch of other people to an event that already happened that doesn't exist anymore. And so we've seen two different events like this that we've run in the past year that they keep reusing and recycling and inviting different people to. So I, again, usually get a lot of emails coming asking details of the conference that I invited them to that doesn't exist. And sometimes they combine the two events as well into one big, massive event that also doesn't exist.
Or sometimes they CC the real Ginny on one that they were trying to send the fake one out, and then she's being notified as it's happening. Some of the ways that we're doing on the defense side too is that we're trying to get so intimate with their operations and their network and their infrastructure that we can see them building stuff before it happens. So we're all about trying to get that minority report, out there before the left of boom. And here's a good example of it right here. There's so many TTPs in this specific one that I really liked. One, you had the fake Voice of America spoof right there at the top. Again, a little hard to see, but forgive me there. It's voanews.one. That is the infrastructure that they had spun up. They then started creating a bunch of fake people from that organization to then spoof. We have the subject line, which Ginny and I have seen a million times, request for comments. That's the go-to. Again, they pay attention to open source. It is very, very high possibility that they will in some way find out about this event right now. They know everything she's doing, and so I don't want to show too many cards in that too as well, but we see this a lot. They've kind of moved on for the request from comments. One of the ones that has been really effective too to let the victim's guard down is a reply to a reply. So you'll see two different REs on the front of the subject line, leading the victim or the target to be, oh man, I'm so far behind on this conversation. I got to hurry up and answer now without looking at anything. And it's super effective. And they're like, hey, we've been hitting you, but really it's the first time they've actually sent the email. Dear Mr. Okay, so that's the content of this one's good too. Request for a brief, blah, 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 blah. I like it. This one, they start talking about satellites. They're interested, like, hey, what do you guys know about disassembling such satellites? At one point in time, they were trying to they asked about, what if North Korea was like to knock out a Starlink? And we're like, okay, and so, us on this side, again, this is all a game. We're looking at them, we're like, you're talking about have a train-launchable tactical nuke that's going to knock out a satellite. I think you might have one or you're close to making one. So again, we're trying to play the game and we're trying to get left of boom. I like this one too. Again, this was such a perfect one. We had this in the actor profile whenever Mandiant went public with APT 43 this year. And this was one of the examples they used. I like at the bottom too, the attachment. After action report is an attachment. It's perfectly clean.
Yeah.
The thing is to get you a couple good ones in, a couple good ones. Or hey, I'd just like to talk to you. Hey, this is my new email. Don't hit me on my old email. Hit me on this new one. And then they'll grease up the skids, and then they hit you with the payload on sometimes. So sometimes they'll do malware. Sometimes they won't. I think they've used malware in you. You're a high pry, but
not since then.
not since then. Not since
They
then.
got
No, we're good.
everything. No, but the fake emails.
Yes.
The best was one time he sent me a notification of someone who they'd come up with. They'd sent an email saying, "Hey, I'm with this new organization. Here's my new email address." It was insaadvisors.gay.
Yeah. And then
And it was like, wait, what? And people were responding like, oh, congrats on the new position. But wait, are you trying to tell me something? Like, why would you choose that? But I think these are also just good examples of like, in the past, we used to think about North Korea when they did these kinds of campaigns. It was easier to tell because the English was bad. There was, a lot of like weird, awkward phrasing and stuff. But they've learned how to do it right, how to do it well, how to be convincing. I've seen emails where they literally explain, hey, we're doing a new research project, posing as me, telling other people that we're doing a new research project. They lay out the idea of the research project. I'm like, wow, that's a really good idea. We should really do that.
Life imitating art.
Yeah.
She made a good point with the language in the emails. Again, all of the machine learning, the language learning, all those things, they're all out there now. So the days of us being to eyeball a Nigerian prince, like that's not doing that. They're getting better. Like they look believable. And I'm a Southerner. Like they speak better English than I do a lot of times. So it's scary. And this is kind of it, to be honest. I do want to kind of like hit an outlook on it real quick. I just want to give kudos. It's always me in front of these things, or it's me talking to Jay-Woo, or it's always me on the camera, but there's a team of people. It is, Emperor Mike Schilling, Brian Cruz, John Jenkerson, and our team. These are scary, scary people. You have APT-43, Mandy, it's APT-43. So we have Jeff Johnson, Dan Scott, Eli Fox, Gary Freeze. There's a Carrie Taylor. They all go on, guys, and it's just want to get their names out there. You'll see them on the blog, but it's usually just my face in there, and I wanted to make sure that these guys get the recognition because they are nasty. We're all in together. Please hit up anyone with mania. They can find a way to contact me. We're looking for allies, looking for people that are also getting hit by. It doesn't have to be APT-43. We're going for all the groups. So anyone's coming after you, I'm all ears. You got anything to plug, Jenny?
Yeah, and just if you're
subs,
interested in North Korea and what's happening, you can check out 38north.org. And yeah, it's a lot of times if you get these emails, I think the big thing is these days, everything is much easier for the threat actors to do. There's so many tools for them to use. We also, in the process, we have to try and protect our reputation, and so we've been trying to also work with different organizations to get domain names taken down and things when they try and create stuff that looks like us, looks very close to us and stuff. But in the news in North Korea, if you're interested, follow me on Twitter and follow 38north.org.
Oh yeah, APT What Now, Michael Barnhart on LinkedIn, and the subs. Did you mention the subs at all? North Korea has a sub, and that's all the rage. You look into that, it's going to be something we're going to be dealing with for a while. But I think we are good. If you want to switch over to questions or anything?
Questions? Raise your hand and give me a. Oh, there we go. It was quick.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. You mentioned that a lot of the TTPs were leveraging just social engineering without malware, and that some of the event invites leveraged previous event invites sent via email. Do you know how the actors are obtaining those event invites?
So a good example is the conference actually that one email referenced was, like I said, a real workshop. And when we were inviting the people to the workshop, there was one person, for instance, who was not responding to us. He had already confirmed that he wanted to participate. We had sent him notices of to get travel information from him, and he didn't respond. So I had to call him separately to be like, hey, we really need you to respond. And he's like, oh, I did. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. And it turns out he had gotten an email from my fake staff asking him to write a paper for us. And then in replying to the fake staff, had also given the fake person all of our conference information and all of his travel information as well. And so he got, which then gave them that conference information. Some of the other ones, again, it's like along the way, when they do get people to respond to them, there is, at some point, can be malware that's put on that then they get access to those files. And so, there are real invitations out there. They'll use the ones that get the biggest return on investment, the most likes. Like this conference, they've used now at least 6 different times, just changing the dates. The other one that they use, an allied approach to North Korea, that they've been using basically for the past 6 months, and they just keep changing the date to like the next month, and inviting different people. So, it looks like a real conference invitation because it was a real conference that did happen. There was a real invitation that went out. They've gotten that information, and then they just continue to perpetuate that.
Thank you.
Was there someone here? Just raise on there you go.
So it sounds like you have an awesome body of knowledge on these folks as they do their social engineering. Have you built out sort of fingerprints based on, the timing, the tempo, the volume, the language they use? And is Mandiant going to sort of put this under their APT43 sort of intel reports? Over.
Yeah, we have, for the actual profile, if you have like access to the Mandiant Advantage, we have, everything left out there. And to include the campaign that she's a part of, it's a part of the rapport building campaign. I don't know how I know, it's 23.012. Ugh, shouldn't know that. It's important to us to inform as many people just from a threat or defensive position. But as far as like all the minutia and all of the things that go into it, we're monitoring how they're doing it. We have such an intimate knowledge of them that we are setting up traps. They're thinking that we know where they're going to be, so that they step into that, and so we can continue our persistent collect as they continue their persistent collect. But it's all a cat and mouse game. As you can tell, they do win. We win. It's just back and forth, and we're trying to just get the upper hand on a lot of this. But we are setting up traps and trying to maintain visibility on a lot of these guys.
Hi, I'm here, straight ahead. Y'all mentioned, also Southern, mentioned that they're heavy into AI and automation. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about how they're using AI and automation in their campaigns. Are they using it to scale their campaigns or improve the effectiveness of like grammar, for instance?
I think it's safe to say that at least we can very easily hit chat GPT. I've used it as well, or with Bard or whatever, whichever one you're picking, just to clean up my hillbilliness. So they're doing the same. But with regards to automation, they are very heavy in automation. If you look at the last DOJ, the indictment, not the indictment, but the advisory, one of the schools that was indicted was the School of Automation. And it is something that if you think about it from their point of view, and again, we've all kind of slept on North Korea. I think that we think that they don't have electricity, they can't get it done. The guys that can get it done well, and I'd put them above a lot of other people. But they also, as no electricity, they don't have the funds, they're starving to death. They're leaning into anything that will force multiply, so you can imagine that automation is going to be a big part of that. The AI angle is something we're actively working on. And I know Mark is right here, and he's going to yell at me if I keep going on that one. So, but it's AI. It's the future, and it's definitely something. If you think about any criminal, it's not really a government. Don't look at it as a government. Look at it as more of a single source mafia family. And like anything criminal, technology is what the criminals jump onto first. And so, with the birth of AI, you have to assume this absolute criminal state is going to be headfirst into it, and it's something we're actively pursuing now.
Hi. Right here.
Over there.
Okay.
So you mentioned that they send out fake invitations to conferences. So what do they get out of this? What is their end goal, and is it just to reduce credibility, or is there some other reason?
A lot of it is, again, just rapport building, right? So it's a good way to start a conversation with someone, and especially if it's, like my organization, inviting them to speak at a big profile conference. A lot of people really want to do it. And so it's an easy way for to get people to say yes and to start responding to them and asking them questions. And generally then, once they've gotten a few emails back and forth, then they can, send them links or, agendas that might have malware on it and stuff. So it isn't, so when they're doing the conferences, it's really just about rapport building. If they're asking questions like interview questions or please write an article about something, then they're looking for specific information.
I think on the last one too, that one of the ones we had worked on, it was the conference. Fake Her was wanting them to just zoom in, and they had sent a weaponized Zoom executable over them too. So it can be any variation of those.
Yeah, and Jenny, just when you were concluding your remarks, you mentioned sort of the friction that sort of all of this creates within the broader DPRK watching community. And, in other contexts, we've sort of run into, like, over time, computer network espionage really causes people to trust each other less and sort of makes it harder to work. To the extent you can sort of speculate, like, could you speak to the aggregate effect of friction on the DPRK watching community within the US?
Well, it makes it really hard for me to actually ask people to write papers or invite them to conferences. It usually requires, like some third-party verification of like, Jenny, did you really send me this? So I think, in the community, there's a lot of vigilance. You can really tell the difference between some of the older generation scholars and younger generation scholars, because the ones who got easier are the older ones. Yeah. Who again don't necessarily even believe when we tell them it's fake. But it does create, like I said, some friction in the sense of, if we invite someone to a conference and then disinvite them, people get angry. If we, commission someone to write a paper and then we don't publish it, people get angry. And so it does create difficulties in both our reputation, but as well as then in being able to invite people in the future, of just being able to verify that it's the real Jenny asking and not some fake Jenny asking.
Out of curiosity, when you identify the impersonation, have you considered or have you made any attempts to respond with misinformation to blur their intelligence picture?
Sometimes we do have a couple of people who do that, where like when they know it's fake, they'll send them, things just to toy with them, answers just to toy with them. Most of us, I don't think we'd have time for that, right? Like we're not going to spend time writing out a fake opinion for a fake person just to see if they might respond to it or not. There just isn't the ROI for that.
One over here. A lot of what you guys talk about, kind of about their interaction with people, I mean, it really comes down to this social engineering piece. So, and even taking away from the title here, the low-tech aspect. So, in my organization, we deal with similar spoofing scenarios, not from North Korea, but like at one point we just kind of were looking at it and said, we're overthinking this. There's a very easy way for us to pick this stuff out. For instance, a VIP or somebody that would be in the organization. Do you guys leverage, like, let's just say, like a low-tech scenario would be like, we're talking about display name spoofing, right? They're impersonating Jenny. So like anybody at her organization, like if an email comes in and the display name contains her name, but the actual domain does not belong to what is known for her, that's a simple kind of just drop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we leverage low-tech things like that to take advantage of, like, let's just get rid of this trash. Sounds like something like that could really be put to use in this scenario to either, not even to drop it, but to give you guys a heads up that it's even going on, to your point, before it even happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gets dropped sitting in quarantine, but you guys pick up on it. And like for your organization, nobody would be able to reach in to, based off of those rules and that specific criteria. So like, federal agencies, everybody always wants to send somebody at the C level.
Yeah.
Can we buy gift cards? Well, if that email comes in from johndoe@gmail.com and your CEO or your CIO is John Doe, it's like you could easily tweak that out to say, yeah, don't let that come in. That is not the actual person that we know what we're looking for. So I mean, do you find these low-tech type things are effective in a scenario like this, or is it being deployed?
Well, for us, I mean, in this game, as far as the game goes, we're just the ones alerting that's happening. We're not there. We don't know what the actual organization that, or the client would be doing on their back end. I agree with that, and actually I really like that. We've seen other ones very similar to that, or even set up different blocks and ranges, be looking for that type of stuff. But again, us as the intel apparatus, we're just there to alert and notify, and then put it in the ball in their court for them to action.
I'd say that's a great idea, but we're talking about a wide net of organizations that get targeted, right?
Outside of yours, those people use that. But
Yeah.
for you specifically, your employees.
Yeah, so our employees, we do have high filters and stuff like that where a lot of things do automatically go to junk. But we also don't get targeted as much anymore. They are impersonating us in order to get other people. And oftentimes when we hear about it, it's people I would have never thought of that would be a target, right? So if I'm gonna warn people, there's probably like a group of 20 to 40 people that would make sense that they would ask these questions to. But I've seen a wide net of people. I've had people email me because they've been sent questions about Korea issues that don't work on Korea issues,
Yeah.
but they'll still ask them, right? And so it's not someone that we would expect in order to warn them of like, hey, try these different methods and stuff. And again, they used to fake my email because it was common for me to ask people to write stuff and common for me to invite them to stuff. Now they've moved on to my staff, impersonating my staff. So it's like, at what level do you warn every organization in DC, here's actual staff, how often do they switch out, to be able to do it that way. The other problem we run into, especially when we're dealing with Koreans, is a lot of time Korean reporters, Korean government officials don't always use their institutional email addresses. A lot of times they will use outside email addresses like Gmail and stuff for their own kind of internal politics of what the Korean government can monitor, what they can't monitor. And sometimes when Koreans are building Gmail addresses, they use really interesting names, not just like Jenny Town, but like Sparkling Future or something.
Like 50 different encodings and different regex patterns to generate the stuff, but something similar.
Yeah.
So far, what has been the best bang for our buck is to getting all of the fake Jennies out there, because there's a list of usual suspects that they're going after, and there's also the usual suspects that they're spoofing. And so right now, I think that since the volume is so high, that right now it's just getting the word out at events like this, her and I blasting on Twitter, just telling everyone and anyone this is, and we see it building sometimes too. So sometimes we can get there like, hey, it's about to come. So it's many different ways, but right now, situational awareness has been so far the easiest one.
Do you use all that historical data to actually come up with and predict like the new stuff, for instance? Like, I have like 40 different emails spoofing, Jenny123 CEO@gmail.com. You just block every single thing.
Oh no, they're slick. They're on to the next one. Yeah.
We've seen AOL, Hotmail, Gmail, Hanmail.
It dropped because it's not your domain coming in.
And
That's for your folks.
yeah, but that's just it. Is like we've seen permutations that have all of the open source emails. We've seen permutations that have like Stimson spelled wrong .org. Still, we've seen Stimson.pro. So they're going after everything. Sometimes we'll actually try, like I said, try and work with the domain companies to get the domains shut down so those emails become inactive before people respond to them. But yeah, like again, it's one thing for organizations like ours that are very aware of this. We can do all of that. But how do you get other organizations, and how much can you really do to get ahead of the game when you're dealing with a whole community of people and not just a couple of targets?
Three questions, last three questions.
Okay.
We've been talking about text primarily as a medium, like email. Have you guys seen DPRK or any other actors using, I'm thinking about voice cloning and then voicemail drops by spoofing Jenny's number or somebody else's number as a way of layering outreach in order to try to build trust, increase reply rates? I can think of like 3 or 4 different use cases where that would be potentially fun or horrifying or you know.
For our guys, APT-43, not so much. I wouldn't say that on behalf of all of North Korea. There has been texting that happened for some of, I'm thinking of one of our guys right now, that got a text and they did it late at night to kind of throw them off. It's not as common though, or at least not, she might contradict me, I don't know.
Well, I don't make phone calls. I don't have to, so no, we haven't seen that yet. I think that's more like on the Chinese side. I know they do a lot of that, especially the texting, like text messages and stuff. But we haven't seen them go there yet.
I have one that's similar to that. So everyone's implicitly trusting things like Slack, and you get an invite to join your alumni group. I'm wondering how much, you know, I assume they're dwelling and hanging out and absorbing as much as they can, but are you seeing any of the infiltration to all these types of SaaS apps that people are trusting so much?
It's, you don't know what you don't know, and I wouldn't say that's a strong area. At least don't fix what isn't broken, and this is very effective for them, and so they continue pushing this until they move. We'll follow them. That's not one I'm seeing quite often, but it's also, you know, they do like, trying to be delicate. North Korea does like platforms like that, but for this operation they wouldn't.
Hi, is there anything similar to what the APWG does with their aggregation of data tied to DMARC and fraud detection that links into things like law enforcement to do the tracking and more of mitigation around these problems, right? I heard people infer to DMARC, which would automatically block messages that aren't authenticated. But then that coordination piece, like what the APWG does for other phishing use cases, it seems like this is ripe for that.
Yeah, and in fact, we've very recently seen them abuse DMARC. They're starting to figure that part out. They can figure out a way to alter the DMARC policies and all that. We've seen them very effective. Actually, is extremely effective. But in regards to like law enforcement, that would be a question I'd have to kind of defer to them. So couldn't say. There is different movements going on within government to create like at least a centralized reporting system so that the government is getting the information when it happens. Like they're not able to act as quickly as, you know, the private organizations. So like I actually work with several different cybersecurity firms when it comes to victim notification because it's just so prominent. But the centralized reporting specifically on North Korean, you know, for the North Korea community is relatively new, and it took them a long time to get it set up and understand how it is. And so right now they're collecting stuff and they're trying to learn, and they're trying to also be vigilant about, again, when these domains come, if we can't get it shut down, then they're also trying to get it shut down. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for hearing us out.
Thanks, everyone.